Welcome to this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to be able to share this episode with you, wherever you are. We talk about overdosing. We talk about people who are addicted to drugs, to substances, people that are vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. But for whatever the reason, if an individual does not have stable housing, stable food intake, or a food source, it can be really hard to handle and talk about this topic of addiction, because maybe to you, maybe to others, to me, we may look at an individual, a person, a human, as well. They're able to make solid decisions for themselves. And I'm not condoning individuals who have made bad life decisions. I've made bad life decisions. I think we all have. We look at various degrees of what those are. But right now, I'm here, you're there, and so we can talk about. So the addiction and recovery of individuals. Well, let's get started. So there's this little known substance out there called fentanyl. Fentanyl is inexpensive from the drug cartels, anybody who's trafficking substances. It's very inexpensive. So fentanyl is used to cut certain drugs. And what that means is, let's say, hypothetically, you have 2 ounces of a particular powder substance, and we want to make money, right? So we could sell those, and they're just hypothetical. I don't know the numbers, just throwing them out there. Let's say for these 2 ounces, 2 grams, doesn't matter. Let's say for these 2, a person dealing in this particular drug can earn $2,000 on the street. But if they cut it, so they take the 2, they cut it in half, they split it, and now they have 1 and 1. Well, how did they make double? They cut it. So they put other substances, other drugs in to make up that difference. Because, well, 2,000 is a lot. $2,000, 2,000 pesos, what, 2,000 euro is a lot of money. If it's doubled, that's even more money. So they would take a proportion amount of fentanyl to make 2 and 2. And so they would sell that first 2 for $2,000. They would sell that second 2 for $2,000. 2,000 plus 2,000 equals 4,000. And on and on and on we go. If we hear the word pure, pure would give the idea that whatever drug, whatever substance has not been cut at all. That it being the substance is pure. It's just as it was manufactured and it has not been cut. And so we talk about business. Number one goal of business is to make money, to continue operating. So whether we're selling t-shirts or we're selling cocaine, in the simplest form is we want to make money. We have bills to pay. We have things we want to buy. We have families to support. We have trips we want to go on. We have cars. We have houses. We have things. We have stuff that we want. People we want to support and have with us. So we take what was 2 and then make 2 and 2, 1 each of the particular substance, cocaine, and 1 of fentanyl. And then that's what gives us the 2 and 2, which equals 4. And so whether that 4 is sold in Cancun, Mexico, Los Angeles, California, Miami, Florida, doesn't matter. Obviously, there's cost of living and differences that are in there. But wherever that 4 is being sold, that drug dealer is making double the amount that they would have if they wouldn't have cut it. So fentanyl is one of the substances that is used to cut. Also has very wicked effects of their own. So there's individuals, there's people, humans everywhere that may have an addiction. We're not going to get into why they have an addiction, how they got the addiction. We're just going to talk about an individual where you live, where I live. And they have an addiction and they are consuming some of a drug to continue that addiction, even though in their mind they might not be thinking of it as the addiction. They're just, I want to feel this certain way again, so I'm going to continue and continue and continue, and I got to take more and more and more, because when I had the first time, then I had the second time. The second time wasn't like the first, so the second I got to take more, then the third time more, and it just becomes this wicked cycle that's occurring. And so now I'm going to talk about here in the United States. So we have, as United States government, President Biden, Vice President Harris administration, Secretary Blinken, Merrick Garland, you name it, they have given a green light to fentanyl coming across the border. Well, you may say, there's an argument, well, if there wasn't a demand, there wouldn't be the product. Okay, that's fair. But let's think about it in this way. The fentanyl doesn't have legs. It doesn't have transportation. It may have a drone, I guess, that they could be carrying it, flying it across the border. But by the past administration letting millions and millions of undocumented people from all over the world, now there's a process in place where individuals, such as my grandparents, they came to the United States from another country, but they came through the legal way. And there were certain checkpoints and things that they needed to do before they could be a citizen and be able to get the housing that individuals are now or have been getting day one. You know, they're getting brand new clothes or getting stays and some of the most expensive hotels, weapons. We've seen crime just get out of control. So, like I mentioned, fentanyl doesn't walk on its own. So some of these individuals coming across the border over the last 4 years have brought over some of these substances, and some of these substances have either been cut with fentanyl, and there's even a more synthetic form of fentanyl that we know is way more potent than the regular, say the regular fentanyl. So the substances, they're coming across the border in record numbers. There's at least 300,000 undocumented, unaccounted for children, which you've heard us talk about on an earlier TikTok video. We can't. Where are these children at? They come across the border and they just disappear. Come on. Let's be real about this. So for whatever reason, individuals have been coming across the border basically at will. And our government, up until today, has not been given the authority to put these individuals through the processes, the legal processes. And so they've been just doing administration, like, oh, here's how many, and here we'll give you a court date, but very few show up for the court date. And then when they try to find them, it sometimes can be difficult. Okay, so that's 14 minutes about that. So the big thing is now, since the inauguration of Donald Trump, that is stopping. And mass deportations will be happening, and we support individuals if they are truly coming from bad places, and then they're really in fear of their lives. You know, so we mentally support them. So when I say support, that doesn't always mean that money is being handed from our organization. That's not what I'm talking about. Saying we support the effort. So if somebody comes across the border and they go through the processes that they need to, we're good with that. When they don't, we're not good with that. Because number one, we're bringing people in. We don't know where they're from, and they're not just from Mexico. They're not just from countries or areas that they say they're from. They're from all over. They're from the Middle East. They're from the Far East. They're from everywhere. And so one is, as a nation, I can't feel safe. You can't feel as safe. We don't know who's prowling about the world and prowling about our communities. And as a father of a child, that bothers me. It has bothered me. So that stopped. The second part is talking about the fentanyl. As we stop the influx, we give more time for the process of bringing people into the United States legally. That gives more time for vetting and background checks. What's on their person? What's in a purse? What's in a backpack? What's in, if they've ingested the drugs, what have you. And that helps. While we wanted the 100% stop, it will vastly slow down the influx of fentanyl across our border. That when it makes it across the borders, or you don't even have to be in the United States. There are people using illicit substances across the world. So it's not just a United States problem. But I live in the United States, so that's why we're hitting that one pretty hard. So this does not, so the slowing or stopping of individuals who haven't met the criteria to come across the border, that doesn't stop the individual in my neighborhood or your neighborhood who is continuing to use. The hope is that they stop, and that's just in general from a health, a human to human. We want people to be the best version of themselves, and that's without some of these foreign illegal substances. So it might not stop that individual from using, but the more we cut the fentanyl, meaning we're stopping it from coming in, or we're decreasing it at any level, will mean less deaths and overdoses from the addiction. And that was not happening over the last 4 years. And so there may be people, organizations don't agree with this episode, with us talking about this, but this is true. So if you don't believe it, I can't, and we can't. We're not forcing anybody to do anything. You're hanging around, watching, being around Voices for Voices. We want the health and vitality of everyone. So we also want that drug dealer to stop dealing drugs. We want them to have an ability, a way to make a living and support their family and themselves without pushing destruction on other people, from the addiction to overdosing to deaths. So that change that happened here with the inauguration, the 47th president, the 60th inauguration, President of the United States at 12:01 p.m. Eastern Time, January 20th. When that happened, some of these measures were starting to be put in place to hopefully curb the influx of fentanyl, whether it is embedded with a product or whether it is on its own. Because there are individuals who know what fentanyl does, and they'll take fentanyl by itself. So all we can do as an organization, as an individual, is to hope, to pray that individuals make choices that increases their lifespan, just their being alive and wanting more out of life than being held hostage by a substance. And that's important. So whether you agree, your organization, your foundation, whether there's an agreement about who we voted for, who voted for who, and who's doing what I just laid out are facts. The facts are millions have come across the border illegally. Just a fact. If you don't want to believe it, I can't force you. And with some of those people, drugs are coming with them. And without enforcing the laws and putting those individuals through what my family, my grandparents had to go through to come here on U.S. soil, it just boggles the mind. So I don't know why it happened. Cheap labor, I don't know. But we're looking at from the mental health, public health standpoint. If we want people to live, longer, well, we don't have control. I don't have control over that. I don't have that control over for myself. But I can tell you right now, if I was continuing down the path that I was, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you through the screen or on the podcast, on the audio. And so that's where that's where a lot of this is coming from. If I went on that path, I don't know where that would have ended. It probably wouldn't have ended very good. And so by helping, if we can help one person, then maybe we can help two. We help two, maybe we could help four. We help four, maybe we could help eight. And so we can take the math side of what we talked about with cutting the substance with fentanyl and take that, push that aside, but bring the math and say, well, if we can help two, why can't we help four? If we can help four, what about eight? So double the individuals. And that doesn't mean we're providing financial support. In some instances, we may. Many instances we don't, because as I mentioned, without continued support, we're not going to be able to continue as an organization bringing content. It's just not going to be able to happen. Because to that other episode, I talk about censorship and shadow banning, and that's real. That affects people. That affects organizations, and we're one of them who has had to buckle down, put our heads down, and just continue. Just continue. One foot in front of the other. And so that's why you've seen since the beginning of 2025, we have, and we're going to continue to make that statement. And we have, and we're going to continue to help people. And we're going to work with organizations who have similar mindsets, similar missions, similar goals. You're going to see us show up with high-profile guests and not high-profile guests. You're going to see us show up in another country, not just in the United States. But what I can assure you, what our board can assure you, is the more you listen, the more you watch, the more you like, the more you share, the more you subscribe, all free, that helps get content to somebody that may need to hear it. And maybe it doesn't get to that individual directly. Maybe it goes through a family member or a loved one, a significant other, a brother, a sister, a nephew, an aunt, an uncle, a grandma, a grandpa, mom, dad, pastor, coach, teacher, superintendent, principal, friend, a player on your team or their team. And so we want to just continue to thank everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I haven't been able to get that ending in on some of these episodes because we've had so much good content to talk through, and that's okay with me because that's more important than me saying my name and I'm the host and the founder, executive director, and all that. So thank you for what you have done and you continue to do, and we appreciate we appreciate you and helping us reach and help in one way or another 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond, because I'm not going to live forever. None of us are. But in the end, I want to think of my legacy as not only did I take some bad things I was doing, some bad decisions, some bad decision making, turn those around as much as possible, much as I can, I could. Not perfect. And that when I could, that I was able to share an experience or two that may help somebody along the way. Doesn't have to be big, it can be small. We're just grateful to help anybody. So until next time, please be a voice for you or somebody in